I think I was ahead of my skis with Kayvon Thibodeau. I may be a little head over heels for Azeez.
Look, as long as your head's not up your ass, we're fine.
Good call.
Yeah.
It's the IDP show, now you know.
Welcome to the IDP show. I'm your host, Josh Raymer, joined in the Sode Shack this afternoon. On my left, Bobby Reynolds. Bobo, how are you, man?
I'm great, Josh. Good to have you back, buddy.
From the Northeast, not
Sorry.
the Pacific Northwest. I was like, yeah, it is north something, just opposite ends of the country. But it's good to be back. We got to see the fall leaves. We got to eat some, some really good cheese, have some apple cider. We got to do some hiking and check out those little quaint Vermont towns. Feel like you're in a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
We had sweatshirts on the whole time. I don't think it got above like 60 degrees, which leaving, Bowling Green the day that we did, it was like 89 degrees. So that was a nice change of pace. I'm ready for fall weather. It's mid-October. Let's get the 80 degrees out of here.
We got it today.
We did.
Similar situation. We went down to Baxter, Tennessee, close to Cookeville this last weekend with some friends in a cabin. Did some hiking. There's some really, really pretty country down there in Tennessee. But yeah, this is the time of year where I come alive a little bit. A little extra cup of coffee midday because it's 50 degrees and you can.
It's soup weather.
Yeah.
Or as the sign that we loved up there said, it's sweater weather.
I like that.
So we were very much enjoying the sweater weather, and would recommend anyone that has thought the leaves in the Northeast in the fall would be nice. Yes, check it out. And then go visit our buddy Lauren's farm and check out the corn maze if you're there with kids.
Did you get to see any of those white barked trees with like the yellow leaves? It's like it's not really around here very much. I can't remember.
I think we did see some white bark trees.
Man, what is that? I don't think it's a fir tree. Anyways, this is
tree talk.
Yeah. Man, that's one of my all-time want to see one day.
Bucket list trips.
Need to get up there.
It's a lot of fun.
Northeast, not the Northwest.
Yes,
Sorry,
the Northwest is great too. It's beautiful up there as well. Different kind of beauty. But glad to be back. Thank you all for holding down the fort admirably.
Yeah.
I was checking in on the phone, laying in bed. We had to share hotel rooms, with the kiddos. So by the time you guys were recording, it was dark. Everyone in the hotel room was asleep. The wife, the kiddos, and so I'm just checking on my phone, all right, have they had any emergencies? Is the StreamYard recording going?
It was very difficult. It's tough to sit in that chair because you got to keep the train on the tracks, and meanwhile you're trying to insert some little snippets and little thoughts that you have. But in the meantime, you're thinking, there's a lot going on over here.
It's a lot of technology.
Making sure that YouTube's good, making sure Rhodey's happy over there.
Got to keep a lot of mouths fed.
Kind of painful.
So Addie's taking the week off. I believe he said tomorrow, anniversary, him and Nat. So happy anniversary, baby.
What year,
Got to be getting close to 10, if not already there.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yes, sir.
So happy anniversary to those two lovebirds. But today we are going to be hitting y'all with the Week 6 headlines. These are the top dozen or so storylines pulled from Aaron's game-by-game recap, which you can read for free over at theidpshow.com. If you want to dig in more details, that's about 4,000 plus words every week for free. Aaron does a great job with that article, and he's pulled over some storylines that we're going to go through. Bobo, it was an eventful week in IDP in many ways. We're going to talk about some good, some not so good, some devastatingly sad. But let's start off on a high note, shall we? And let's start off in Houston, where another Mr. Anderson is getting the headline for the episode. This time, Will Anderson, Fresh Prince of Houston. We had another IDP top the scoring charts overall this week. Will Anderson got home on Drake May 3 times to the tune of 48.2 points by Big 3 scoring, and he might have single-handedly won you a week. We hope you didn't lose faith, Bobo. This felt like one of those things that was coming. You could see it if you were watching the game. The underlying metrics were there. And sometimes it just takes a rookie quarterback making his first start to get home for 3 sacks.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to go back to our thread and actually read his stat line. So he had 3 sacks, 8 total tackles, 6 of them were solo. I think 4 of them were actually TFLs, 2 assisted tackles, 3 QB hits, and 1 pass deflection. Good God, this is the type of week to where, we've been seeing it with Will Anderson. We've seen the trend all along. He had 2.5 sacks going into this week, but yeah, pushing almost a 50-point game in week 6 kind of makes me want to go to theidpshow.com and kind of look around a little bit at the ranks. Have you noticed there's a new number one?
Is there a new number one? Tell me who it is.
His name is Will Anderson.
Will Anderson, number one. Well, I'm sure that ties into the next news item we'll get to here in just a little bit. But, I mean, sophomore year for Will Anderson, got Danielle Hunter alongside him, great defensive-minded head coach. This is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And you saw it. You saw the underlying metrics pointing towards a really kind of boom game coming. Pass rush grade, 87.6 for Anderson in this game. Win rate, 27.3. Pressure rate, 22.7. I mean, he's just been killing it. Sacks are just a lot of times a lucky, fluky statistic. So if you have the underlying metrics that are going to point to sacks in the future, this is the kind of game, if you're playing a poor offensive line like the Cleveland Browns, or you're playing a rookie quarterback making his first start, these are the kinds of things that can happen when you're playing well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look a little bit to it, Will Anderson's upcoming schedule. So there are at Green Bay this week, and I don't think Love has taken a lot of sacks, but then you're playing Indianapolis, maybe against AR, maybe against Flacco, hopefully against AR.
AR's supposed to be back this week.
But then you get, Aaron Rodgers in week 9. So, man, the next couple of weeks.
Rodgers got hammered last night.
Yeah, dude. After that, you got Detroit. So Detroit's pretty tough, Dallas and Prescott. But then Tennessee and Jacksonville week 12 and 13. As you're kind of making a push there to
push
make
for
the
playoffs. Yeah, you want to be playing Trevor Lawrence and Will Levis as you push for the playoffs.
Let me flip this on its lid a little bit, Josh, and ask you, what are we kind of doing with Danielle Hunter right now? Because Danielle Hunter's been floated as a name that people would trade not only in some of my redraft leagues, but also some of my dinos. And I'm like, it keeps feeling like Danielle is a buy low, but he's just not. Something's not right. He doesn't feel like old Minnesota Danielle to me.
Yeah, I think it takes time. I mean, you see whenever, players switch teams, it takes time to get acclimated. Danielle Hunter's been playing well. He just hasn't been getting home. I wanted to actually pull up the log here so that we could talk about the actual output for fantasy. So, he's had some nice games so far. He's had some dud games, some single-digit outputs, but he's also had 24 points in week 2 and 17 points this week. So my thing is, I think this is one of those players who sometimes you see it with rookies, like Leatu Latu is a guy I expect to really get going in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
We saw this with Aidan Hutchinson. We saw it with Will Anderson. Sometimes rookies, they're in new situations. Takes a little time to warm up. Danielle Hunter, veteran, but also in a new situation with a new team. And I think he's one of those players that's going to really, Adam talks about the beginning of the season splits and end of the season splits.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those who's going to be like, 9.5 points on average the first 8 weeks of the season, 17.5 points average, weeks 10 through 18. So I am all in. If you have a league mate that's wanting to sell low on Danielle Hunter, give me that all day long, because I think based on the way he's playing, better performances are coming later this season. And especially because this is a team that's going to be pushing for the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing. Like, I made a trade today for Chris Jones. Chris Jones has not been great thus far, but when does Chris Jones play well? End of the season, right?
Yep.
When the Chiefs are making a playoff push, when the playoffs get here, that's when Chris Jones shows up. And so I think brighter days are ahead for Danielle Hunter. But I could understand why folks are frustrated. If you're a team that's wanting to rebuild and you want to flip Danielle Hunter for a pick, I don't blame you at all.
Love that.
So, Fresh Prince of Houston, that's the good news. Will Anderson, great game. Let's talk about some not so great news, big injuries for big names. There's no really nice way to go about this, no jokes to be made. It's just sadness. Aidan Hutchinson lost for the season with a gruesome tibia fracture while sacking Dak Prescott. His leg got whipped around into the shin of an O-lineman and fractured. He had surgery there that day in Dallas. He'll be out the rest of the season. I don't care what Dan Campbell says about never count him. No, count him out, Dan. Like, just let Aidan recover and be back in time for week 1 next year. We wish him a speedy recovery. But yeah, Aidan Hutchinson was at 1. I love the talk that you all had. It was kind of bittersweet now because I was listening to the episode yesterday after the injury to Hutch. So, just a bummer. This guy was the brightest star in IDP, and losing him for the season is akin to losing like Justin Jefferson on the offensive side. IDP is just a little less fun with Aidan Hutchinson gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Aidan was having a pretty crazy year.
That stat, Adam, dropped about 10 pressures per game. The next closest was like 5 point something. That's nuts.
Had 7.5 sacks through the first 6 weeks, and that was with a bye week. So really in 5 weeks, he had 7.5 sacks. Honestly, was kind of trending for something special. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering right now with Aidan, a lot of Dynasty people are listening to this podcast. What do we do with Aidan? Because a tibia break is a pretty big deal. It's not an Achilles. It's not an ACL. It's a bone that can be healed and everything. But, man.
It wasn't the double break compound fracture kind of thing that's
correct.
like devastating. Like, you think about Dak Prescott, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had that awful, awful break of his, I think, ankle or shin, like lower leg. And so, I mean, he's been fine.
Yeah.
He's come back. He's been fine. I always feel better about breaks than tears.
Okay.
It's still not a great injury to have, obviously, but 4 to 6 month recovery timeline, that's less than an ACL, less than an Achilles. I expect him to be back at full health. This isn't a Jalen Phillips situation where I'm worried, like, are we ever going to see full Aidan again?
The bigger bummer for this is for the Lions.
Yes.
This is going to affect game script a lot.
I think this kills their Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah, I agree.
I would have probably pegged them as the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC right now, and I don't think they're that. I think they step down 1 or 2 slots. I mean, you just ripped the heart out of this defense. And that defensive line takes a huge hit now because Davenport's already on the shelf.
Yeah.
Now Hutch is on the shelf. I mean, they're going to have to go get somebody, bring somebody in.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier of the guys that are out there, who's still available. Like Ogba got snatched up by the Dolphins. Clowney's obviously not available right now, but I mean, I don't even know free agent wise.
Could you make a trade with the Panthers for someone like Clowney?
Yeah.
Could you go find one of these teams that's kind of spiraling the drain a little bit and go snatch a veteran guy off there?
It would be spicy. Go get Max Crosby.
Oh, that would be sick.
Especially
that would
with
be
the
sick.
Devontae Adams news.
Go send I think if you sent, would you think a second plus a third gets it done, or does Las Vegas want a first?
So the Devontae trade today was a conditional third.
That could turn into a second and won't because it's like ridiculous criteria.
No chance. But, yeah, I would start with a second for Max Crosby.
If they hang up, then you're like, okay, we're not even close. But if they offered their first-round pick next year?
Because as a team, man, the Lions are set up perfectly right now to actually make a Super Bowl run.
This is your window.
The teams that are around them this year are kind of weak. Like in the NFC, you've got the Packers are okay.
That whole NFC North is spicy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, NFC East,
the
Commanders.
You can get past all of them.
Yeah.
The Rams aren't good.
Like I said, my top team would have been the Lions
I
before
agree.
this Aidan Hutchinson injury. That would have been my betting favorite.
And if you're looking for a one-on-one replacement for the Lions, Max Crosby.
And then can you imagine
sense.
next season when Hutchinson is healthy and you got Max Crosby on the other side?
Because you're definitely in a window with that Lions team.
That would be fun. Other injury news, Jonathan Allen undergoes season-ending surgery, torn pec. Quiet start to the year. He had begun to put things together, back-to-back sacks in week 4 and 5 leading into this matchup. So hate to see him lost for a Commanders team that even though they lost to the Ravens spicy, I expect them to probably be, in the mix, if not the favorite for the NFC East title.
Yeah, so go to your waivers and see if Jerzon Newton is available because
or Johnny Newton. You might want to search for both.
His what is he? On Sleeper he is Jerzon.
Is he? Okay.
JER apostrophe ZHAN.
Yes.
If you're needing help spelling that. But his snaps did tick up quite a bit. He went from 21, 34, 37, 40, and then last week jumped all the way up to 54%. He had 3 tackles last week. Doesn't have a sack on the year. Deron Payne has also been really bad, but
he was the replacement plan for one of these guys.
Correct.
And so now here's the opportunity. I expect him to slot right in as the Jonathan Allen replacement.
For sure, and we'll see how good he is because the rookie D tackle down there in Tennessee has actually played pretty good this season.
Yeah. Big old boy.
Yeah, we'll come up with his name here in a little while. But yeah, Jerzon Newton. I'm probably going to try to grab him.
Devondre Sweat.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good call. Good pull, Joshy.
Really, I mean, just about as wide as he is tall.
For
Sweat,
sure.
because the Colts played the Titans, and we were not running the ball with Jeffrey Simmons and Sweat just clogging up the middle on
Correct.
every single play.
Yeah.
Another injury, Azeez Ojulari ruled out fairly quickly post-injury, so that could preclude something serious. We'll see. I haven't seen anything on Ojulari. Henry To'oto'o's injury was a concussion, so based on the kind of track record with concussions, we expect he'll miss Week 7 and be back in Week 8. Christian Harris is eligible to return from IR currently, so if he's on waivers, check him out as a possible stash. Other than that, I don't know who this team is going to be rolling out there if both of these guys are hurt.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's about the depth of what I would feel comfortable actually starting. I mean, there are probably some other names. Neville Hewitt maybe is going to get a little bit of run, but
it was a knee injury for Ojulari.
Okay.
We don't know the severity. I think we're still waiting on testing. Macri says the same thing here in his PFF recap article that he looks like Christian Harris is trending in the right direction to play in Week 7. So it may be Christian Harris time in Houston, especially if both these guys are out.
Yeah, and as gross as maybe that has been in the past, I think that could be a nice little replacement. You know, Christian Harris always hasn't had the best PFF grade, but, I mean, he's been better.
Into the season on fire.
Absolutely.
So,
and even, I don't know, the situation that Houston Texans team is in, it's great it's setting up really nice for Daniil, for Will Anderson, and then even for those linebackers to get some big plays because Stroud is it's helping them play with the lead.
If Harris is out there on your waivers, go blow your fab, blow your waiver priority, because if Azeez is out for the season or out for a significant portion of time, Christian Harris and To'oto'o become the every down starters.
You know, and that's a good call, Joshy, because sometimes, like, prior to you knowing other news is a small window of, like, maybe Christian Harris is not that expensive, you know, because maybe everybody thinks, well, Azeez isn't that big of a deal, to where when Azeez is all of a sudden deemed of, like, he's going to IR, he might miss the remainder of the season, then Christian Harris's price dramatically increases. No Christian Harris so far this year, but you're exactly right. The end of last season was really, really freaking
Yeah, what
good.
was the log?
Yeah, so Week 12 on in Big 3 scoring, 17, 6, 15, 15, 11, 16, 23. Do not forget, in the
opening round of the playoffs,
wild card, he put up a 43.4, 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 INT for a touchdown. And then even in the divisional round with Baltimore, had 7 tackles that week. So you're right. Finished the 2023 season on an absolute heater.
Well, there you go. That is the injury roundup, the sad portion of the show. So, yes, speedy recovery for all these dudes. And we'll just hold out hope that, the injury to Azeez Ojulari is not serious, and we'll see To'oto'o back as well, because he's been really good as well.
Yeah.
This is a big trade, Bobo. As we're here on air, Amari Cooper has been traded to the Bills.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so I think this is really good for Amari Cooper.
I think it's great. I'm an Amari Cooper. I rostered him in our main league. I'm thrilled
Congratulations,
because he's had Deshaun Watson, the train wreck that was Deshaun Watson, as his quarterback, and now you get Josh Allen. It's funny to see both the teams in Monday Night Football last night both making moves.
You know, I love and I hate when some of this Twitter crap comes to fruition. You know, you've got the Pretty Rickies, you've got the Adam Schefters of the world out here, you know, saying like, we're hearing a lot of this Amari Cooper to the Chiefs, to the whatever, you know, and that gets really annoying. But it's also really fun to see like, wow, the Bills in what are we going into? Week 7 is a spicy spot because I don't know. If you want my opinion, I don't think Keon Coleman has been that great. I don't think he has any elite skills. I think he's going to be average in the NFL. Amari Cooper is probably super tired of dealing with.
Yeah, was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last year with Joe Flacco at the helm.
You know, I don't know what the whole realm of the end of that Browns game was when Watson walked off the field on that presumable 4th down play last week, but it seemed like Amari Cooper was just tired of the crap there.
Yeah,
you know,
and it makes me like think, well, what are you doing, Browns? If you're sticking with Deshaun Watson and that ship is sinking, but you're sending off Amari Cooper, like I'm getting mixed signals here on what you guys are trying to do this season.
Isn't it crazy in the NFL that we're about to probably see 2 numbers in Russell Wilson's contract and probably Deshaun Watson's contract be dropped, to where you go on Spotrac and you're like, they can't get out of these.
That's an extra zero.
They're about to eat both of these crazy contracts that none of us will ever fathom that type of money.
No. And then you have Hassan Reddick, getting new representation with Drew Rosenhaus, and he's given permission. It's like maybe, Jets, you should have given him permission to seek a trade before all this stuff came out about him hiring goons and turning down a reworked deal with the Jets that would have made up all his fines and put him back on the free agent market next offseason. So
I wish you had
just some weird decisions.
Wish you had some NFL teams that would function like us in fantasy, to where it's just like rip the Band-Aid off with
just
Deshaun.
do it.
Get him out of here.
Just bench him.
I do agree with what our good friend Mark Sessler said a couple weeks ago about, like, dude, win Cleveland back. Get rid of this joker. Admit that you made a mistake. Win with some 4th, 5th, 6th round, players, some UDFAs, and regain the city, because that's a mess.
It's a mess. And also, like, if you're Stefanski, you're not going to win. You're going to finish with 4 or 5 wins with Watson at the helm. You're going to get fired.
Yeah.
So you're going to get fired playing a guy you don't want to play. Mm-hmm. Put in Winston. See if you can win some games.
And have fun.
And then force the owner's hand. If you go 7, 8 wins, you're scrappy in the mix for the wild card. See if you can keep your job. And then if it goes south, at least it goes south with a guy that you want to be your quarterback. You're taking your swing as a head coach. I just think it's just kind of spineless for Kevin Stefanski just to blindly follow orders from ownership to keep starting this guy that everyone knows is an anchor around this team's neck.
I do love these narratives right now in the NFL of, like, Andy Dalton with the Carolina Panthers, Joe Flacco kind of leading the Colts a little bit through midseason.
Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold.
Man, it's a
lot of these cast-offs.
It goes to show you how difficult it is to be a QB in the NFL.
Well, and how much surrounding cast matters, experience, coaching, right? Environment is so important for a quarterback.
Dude, and from a timing perspective, get rid of Watson and make the new news story being about Nick Chubb coming back right now.
Yep.
You can
get some real mojo going.
That are Browns fans.
If you got Jameis out there, Nick Chubb is coming back.
Just eating fingers.
Yeah, all the bitter fans right now who are really tired of this team, I think you could win them back with a couple moves here. So
for sure.
Let's make it. Let's go to the next point here. Number 3, take it easy, Tykee. Tykee Smith had the top scoring game of his career, 25.25 points by Big 3 scoring, besting last week's total by another 5 points. Y'all talked about Tykee Smith on last week's headline episode. Smith forced the fumble that Winfield returned, and later in the game picked off fellow rookie Spencer Rattler to go with his 5 tackles. Week 6, also the season debut for Kalijah Cansey. Welcome back, Kalijah.
Yes.
After he missed the first 5 weeks with a calf injury, he wasted no time getting to work. He was PFF's top-graded pass rusher on Tampa Bay's side with a 77.5 grade. He led the team in pressures with 4 and had 1 of the 5 sacks on Spencer Rattler. That game was insane.
Yeah.
It was like 27-24. The Saints battled their way back, and then I look up again, and it's 51-24. Just something like, no, maybe it was like 51-27. The Bucks went down and then scored 24 unanswered or 27 unanswered. It was a wild game.
The Bucks seem special this year.
I think so, man.
That's a fun team. You got Mike Evans there for a couple years. Baker Mayfield is just working out. But, yeah, shout out to Adam Markham. Who is he on Twitter right now? Big pole lover.
He is theidpshow.com still.
I love that.
Still at Adam IDP.
This is one of Adam's little DB lovers in the offseason. Rookie Tykee Smith, we talked about it a little bit last week, has been one of the lone bright spots, not only in rookie DBs, but also for DBs as a whole this year.
Yeah, it's true.
To me, corner's been a little bit more predictable, and you've had some decent showings from like Alontae Taylor and guys like that. But
so many of our beloved safeties. Winfield's been out. Hamilton's been mid. Derwin's been mid.
Yep.
I will say Newbin, y'all mentioned Newbin. He's heated up a little bit here the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
13 points, 16.45, 12.25 the last 3 weeks.
But
so
Tykee has
doing a little
definitely
better.
stood alone. He has now 4 double-digit games on the season, 12 and 13, week 2 and 3. And now back-to-back weeks of 20 and 25 points, week 5 and week 6. And he has 16 tackles over that time frame, 2 forced fumbles, which is a big thing for me to pay attention to because, it's pretty evident that he's going in just with a hammer.
Yep.
He's trying to knock the ball out. He had 1 INT last week. So I am interested to see as they integrate Antoine Winfield back into that defense a little bit more. I don't think Tykee Smith's role is going to change at all, but I think that team is just going to get better. Those linebackers have not been as great this year. Levante David, I don't know if he's taken a step back or just has taken a while to kind of reacclimate to, no Devin White. Now you've got Servassier Dennis, who's been a little banged up. You got KJ Britt, who hasn't been playing very well. The defensive line there has been pretty gross, but I agree with everything Aaron's saying right here. I love Kalijah Cansey. I think this is a nice little buy low window on Kalijah Cansey because as far as D tackles go in Dynasty, I value Kalijah Cansey really, really highly.
He's a top 5, top 6 D tackle for Dynasty.
I think you could look up and in a year or so, you're kind of having him in the conversation of like, I don't want to say Quinnen Williams yet, but it's also kind of like Quinnen hasn't really done much in the last year or so. So, I mean, if you want to go and mark your flag on a guy like Kalijah, I love him. I've have him rostered in a lot of spots just because that Bucs team is really good, and Kalijah's going to get a bunch of PT.
Yeah, agreed. So let's keep it rolling. One Azeez exits, another enters. It's Ojulari this time. Azeez Al-Shaair, we mentioned knee injury ruled out. Kayvon Thibodeau, sorry, Bobo, I don't think your Kayvon flag plant is
thank God.
come to pass with Thibodeau going on IR. Azeez Ojulari got the start, hit Joe Burrow 2 times in the backfield. He was presumed dead for fantasy this season due to a decline in play over the past 2 years and the acquisition of Brian Burns, who was awesome this week. But the most encouraging sign for Ojulari was 77% of the snaps in this game. He's in a contract year, so maybe there's some juice that we can squeeze out here while Thibodeau is on IR. What do you think about old Azeez Ojulari having a second life here, Bobo?
Dude, I love it. I've always been kind of a closet Azeez fan. I know he didn't do a ton last year because he was a little bit banged up. Over the last 5 weeks in 2023, he did have 2.5 sacks. And then so far this year, he has 3 sacks on the season on exactly what Aaron's saying here, minimal playing time. Let's look here. Week 1, 44% of snaps, 31, 42, 34, 36, and then a huge uptick last week to 77% of snaps. I'm all for it. Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be out for quite a while. Azeez Ojulari might be better than Kayvon Thibodeau.
Oh, that's spicy.
I mean, I know that was my flag plan, and that was me getting,
how
a little
quickly.
bit head over heels.
Oh, how quickly the worm has turned.
Head over heels, is that the same thing as getting your head out ahead of your skis?
No, head over heels is like you're in love.
Okay.
Getting out over your skis is kind of like you're getting ahead of yourself.
So that was the Kayvon take.
That was the Kayvon take.
Okay.
You might have been head over heels and thus gotten out over your skis.
I think I was ahead of my skis with Kayvon Thibodeau. I may be a little head over heels for Azeez.
Look, as long as your head's not up your ass, we're fine.
Good call.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Brian Burns real quick. So Azeez is whatever. I mean, if he's available, I'd probably go get him because he's going to get some run.
If he's on your waivers, which he probably is, go scoop him up.
We back in on Brian Burns now?
Man, he looked really good.
Yeah.
He looked really good. And this was not one of those quarterbacks where it's like a Drake May situation where it's like, well, of course, Brian Burns looked good. But you look at the season thus far for Burns, 5 points, 7.25 the first 2 weeks, but then the last 4 weeks, 28.25, 8.25, 20.8, 23.8, a sack in 3 of the last 4 weeks. I'm back in. Mm-hmm. I think he's an every week starter, top 24 edge rusher. And I would be plugging him in with confidence moving forward.
I'm the same way. If you actually watch the Giants play football, which is difficult to do, I understand that.
It hurts the eyes.
You got to watch both sides of the ball, especially with what's his name out now, the wide receiver.
Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, with him not playing.
It's brutal.
But yeah, Brian Burns has been pretty close to a lot of big plays throughout the beginning of the season. He's close to a lot of sacks, near a lot of forced fumbles, in my opinion, a lot of strip sacks. So I don't know that we were ever completely out on Brian Burns, but I think the taste in your mouth was just a little sour to start the season of like, is this a red flag here? But I think Brian Burns I think he's very much similar to Danielle Hunter.
That's what I was just thinking.
Give him time.
Let him heat up a little bit.
Yep.
And he's heating up. Speaking of, I'm going to try to get this headline from Aaron here. Trevin Trevindication, like vindication of pre-draft priors. Wallace is looking like a stud. That's Trevin Wallace, if you were wondering. He followed up his monster 15-tackle debut with another quality showing. He had 9 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 1 recovered fumble against Atlanta to the tune of 16.75 points. With Shaq Thompson on season-ending IR, Wallace looks set to be the every-week IDP starter at the linebacker position. We kind of wondered, Trevin Wallace, okay, this Panthers team is bad. Shaq Thompson's kind of old. Does he get the nod at some point because this team is like 2-10 and they just want to see what they have? Well, his opportunity comes via injury to Shaq Thompson, which we also knew was a possibility for Shaq. And the young man has taken it and run with it. And as a Kentucky boy, love seeing this, Bobo.
I think this is just a lap for the IDP show. You know, all of us in here have basically just stood on the table and told you how much you need to draft Trevin Wallace, because I really didn't think that it was going to be to this point, this early in the season. I was looking more at that week 11 bye, thinking after the bye, that's when Trevin Wallace is really going to take off. But you're exactly right, Josh, in that Shaq Thompson has been banged up every year for the past 3. He has not completed, I feel like, a NFL season of more than 12 games in quite a while. So the either poor play or the season-ending IR, just being banged up, was going to happen at some point, I felt like. But yeah, boy, Trevin Wallace in the last 2 weeks, 100% of snaps in week 5, 100% of snaps in week 6. He has, all right, you sitting down?
I'm sitting down.
24 tackles in the last 2 weeks.
Pretty good.
A forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 16 points in week 5 in Big 3 scoring, and then 16.7 in week 6.
I think that's what you can expect.
Trevin Wallace could be a league winner for you.
Could be. I didn't think the, opportunity would come this quickly, because you're essentially banking on an injury to Shaq Thompson, which we never want to wish injury to back up your claim in your black heart, though. 4 games this year, 2 games last year, 17 in 2022, but 14 in 2021.
Okay.
So it's just been
banged up.
Yeah, banged up. The first 5 years of his career, 2015 through 2019, he played 14 games every season. So he was always missing 2 or 3 games every season.
You want Trevin Wallace or Adrian Cooper in Dynasty?
Boy, I think they're pretty close. I think they're neck and neck.
Man, that's crazy that we're even thinking about that, right?
I mean, when players are close like this, in my mind, as far as long-term outlook, I'll just take the guy that's producing right now so I can have the edge for the current season. So probably Trevin Wallace.
I'm going to ask you one more question in a second, but right now, the IDPshow.com, Adam has Adrian Cooper as the LB15 and then has Trevin Wallace as the LB32.
Okay. I bet you Trevin's going to be moving up with this next update he does.
22. So
LB22?
Yes. Yeah, I read that wrong.
Okay,
so it's not actually that far apart. Do you want Jack Campbell or do you want Trevin Wallace?
Boy. Man. Jack Campbell's just so hard, dude, because he has everything that we want in terms of athleticism, great team, draft capital.
Yeah.
We just haven't seen the snaps yet.
Yeah.
But I do think the day is coming where
y'all gonna be saying this in 2026.
Anzalone is just the thorn in the side right now, man. We just have to get him out of there.
We just need a Shaq Thompson type ending for Alex Anzalone.
We need Anzalone maybe to get a haircut, and he loses all his special powers and is not good anymore.
That'd be a red flag if all of a sudden it comes out Anzalone went for the buzz cut, or he's got the Joe Burrow going on. Get out.
Hopefully not.
Get out now.
If he pulls the Slim Shady and does the short blonde hair, that's going to be a bad look for Anzalone.
You like the Burrow look? Into it?
No. I just don't think white guys look good with the Slim Shady look.
I think he looks great. I think he looks really good.
If he feels good about it and he likes it, that's all that matters.
Sure.
At the end of the day, who are we to judge people's hairstyles?
Yeah.
But let's talk more about the Giants, Bobo. We mentioned Azeez Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns earlier. Another player not looking so hot, Bobby Okereke. He's been fine. Not a disappointment on the, epic scale that we've seen before with some of these early picks, but not what you signed up for after a stellar 2023. And going off the board is LB3. Through 6 weeks, he's the LB24. In fact, outside of Fred Warner, none of the other top 5 linebackers are in the top 10 currently. Mm-hmm. So we had talked a little bit about, especially at IDP drafts, how do you approach IDP best ball? Do you snag these off-ball linebackers early because there's fewer of them, and you can't make any waiver pickups in season. So you got to target the guys we know are going to get 100% of snaps and just hope for injury luck. At least so far, a lot of these top-drafted linebackers have not been living up to the billing. Bobby Okereke, one of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just one of those things where the guy's still getting the snaps. So, I mean, if you have better options, yeah, I think you can sit him. Like if you have Tyrell Dodson or Speed or Pratt, those are all my linebackers. That's who's coming to mind.
Yeah.
But I would, and I had Bobby, let's say I still have Bobby O on that team. Yeah, I don't think I'm starting Bobby O if I have better options.
Let's dig a little deeper, though.
Dig in.
So the points per game have not been terrible, to be honest with you. Big 3 scoring, week 2, he put up 21 points. He had a sack that week. Week 3, he had 11.1. Week 4, 14. He had a stinker in week 5. But then he had 12.75 in week 6, a forced fumble with 5 tackles.
You're not wanting to pull your hair out like I can't start this guy anymore. It just for where you had to take him, it's been a letdown.
The PFF numbies are about what they've always been, to be honest with you. They were at a peak in 22 and 23. Indianapolis, he had a 73 overall defensive grade with the Colts. Then last season, he had crazy numbers. He had an 80 grade in tackling, an 82 grade in coverage, a 78 grade for the Giants as an overall PFF grade. So far this season, he has a coverage grade of 70, which is still fine. The tackling grade is a little bit down at 51, an overall defensive grade of 65. But even last week, week 6, he had a coverage grade of 69. He had a tackling grade of 81. He had a overall defensive grade of 75. So I think I'm buying Bobby O right now.
Well, and I think I was looking last year to see, like, are we just feeling the pinch a little bit because of how he started the year last year?
Now, we expected some regression because there's a new defensive coordinator there with the Giants this year. Wink Martindale is now gone. I don't even know where Wink is right now.
I don't think Wink knows where Wink is right now.
But I traded Bobby O for Frankie Louvu straight up in the offseason.
And I traded Bobby O to you.
Yes, correct.
That I did.
It felt a little weird, and even so far with Louvu, it's been a little up and down. But based off of what the PFF looks like and looking at the game log, I don't think Bobby O has been as bad as maybe, sometimes we see the bad in that, like, gosh, he got me 5 points this week. Yeah, but some other weeks he also got you 15 to 20.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're feeling the pinch. I'm looking at last year's log. Started off a little quiet, 9.75, 11.5, 11.75, but then he went on an absolute tear, 20.5, 24.2, 30.25, then 15, 19, and then later in the season, a 21-point game, a 29-point game, 23-point game, 23-point game. Yeah. So he was just putting up north of like 18 to 20 points on the reg last year.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get that Bobby O back this season, but he's not a guy that I'm like, oh no, I guess I should just dump this guy for nothing.
Yeah.
You might have better options that have started the season hotter, but Bobby O's not a guy I'm like cutting from my roster.
Linebacker's been hard this year. A guy like Bobby O's kind of hard to come by.
Yeah. I'm just not giving up on guys that are playing the snap share.
Agreed.
That Bobby Okereke is.
100%. If the snap share's there and you're getting this kind of production, just ride it, man.
And you've seen it, right?
Yep.
Like Bobby O is not an unproven product at this point.
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Don't go chasing low snap counts.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think it gets interesting is like, do you plug in someone like a Mac Wilson over a Bobby Okereke, right?
Yeah.
One of those guys that has been performing better on a lower snap count. That's where I think it becomes an interesting conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just kind of context specific, where it's like, okay, what are your other options at the position? Who are you playing? Do you need that boom week? Or would you rather just shoot for like a guaranteed 10 to 13 points with Okereke with upside?
Yep.
I don't know. For the most part, when it comes to linebacker, I'm going to go after the thing that is most predictable for success, which is snaps.
I agree with what you said in reading his 2023 log, to where Bobby Okereke probably outkicked his coverage a little bit in 2023. To me, Bobby O is really more of just a solid LB2. He was like pre-injured Shaq Thompson. Great situation. He was going to get a lot of playing time. He was going to have some up and some down weeks. But he was not going to be this top 5 linebacker for the rest of his career. That's just not anything I feel like that we've expected. So, man, Bobby O, I'm trying to acquire. I'm not selling him at all right now.
No, just be
Don't
patient.
come asking.
Yeah. Don't come at. Well, you don't have him anymore, do you?
No, I'm just
Do you have
trying
him
to think
anywhere?
I'm trying to think of all my leagues. I don't know. I'm sure I have him somewhere.
You probably have him somewhere.
Yeah.
But he was just a guy, even in like best ball, I was not drafting because he seemed like a prime regression candidate.
Yeah.
100% of snaps too, like 100 across the season last year.
Didn't miss a snap.
Didn't miss a snap. So that's
hard to do.
That's just very hard to do.
That's hard to do. Not
Nope.
have a shoe untied.
Not
a stinger.
Yeah, you get your team's getting blown out, or you're blowing somebody out, so you get rested.
Or you have like one of the plays now where the ref is like, no, you got to come off for this play.
We saw concussion-like symptoms. You were a little wobbly. Come on off and get tested.
The betting odds of a person playing 100% of snaps for the season has to be insane.
You don't get hit in the stomach and get the wind knocked out of you.
Bet $10, win $1 million.
Yeah, seriously, those kind of odds.
Yeah.
So number 7 point here, Bobo. He must be angelic because that performance was divine. It was good to have Divine Deablo back in our lineups and back in the Raiders lineup after missing weeks 3 through 5 with an oblique injury. He played 93% of snaps. He had 6 tackles and collected his first sack of the season. I watched a little bit of that Raiders game against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Deablo was electric. He was all over the place. It was funny. Spillane said earlier in the week, I can't wait to have Double D back.
Yeah.
He's just a playmaker. I love playing alongside him. So you'd love to hear that from, one of the top 3 linebackers in IDP this season.
Yeah.
Tommy Eichenberg did miss a game with a hamstring injury. He was terrible in his debut last week, though. So I think it's going to be Deablo and Spillane moving forward. What the snap share looks like, I don't think it's going to be 93% of snaps moving forward. North of 80% for Deablo, assuming he's healthy. I think that's a fair estimate.
It's just, how much is there really to like about Divine Deablo? Really,
I think he's got that playmaker upside.
For sure.
That you want is like your LB2, 3.
Yep.
If he's your LB1, you're in trouble.
If somebody's hype on Divine Deablo, you know what I'm doing? I'm trading him for Bobby Okereke.
There you go.
Because this type of like Willie Gay role, the big play guy that's clearly behind, Spillane right now. Spillane's that, guy that's going to get you pretty much the same amount of points every single week. But you're going to see the highs and the lows with Deablo. Is he fun to watch? Is he kind of JOK-ish? Absolutely. But I don't know that he's going to win you a lot of weeks. I don't know that he's really just going to go off and just have
He's going to be a hard player to start.
For sure.
Right? Because you don't know, like, even with this 93% snap share, I don't know that I'm plugging him in next week because you do have other options there behind Deablo. Like, what happens when Eichenberg gets healthy?
Yeah.
I do think, that's my expectation, but so many times in fantasy, you just want to reduce downside risk with your starting lineup. And so if I've got better options, I'm probably going to wait just another week on Deablo, see what happens. And then if we have a week or 2 or 3 of north of 80% of snaps, that's when I would feel comfortable plugging this guy in.
Deablo feels like a really good handcuff if you have Spillane.
Well, and also he feels like a good bye-week fill-in because we're going to have some buys coming up. We've already had some injuries hit. So, maybe you were the Azeez Ojulari manager and you're thinking, what do I do now? Go grab Divine Deablo off of waivers or, Christian Harris if he's available as the direct replacement. But anyways, another headline, this time from Denver, Bobo. Zach Allen. Y'all mentioned him on the last show. We kind of had a comment on YouTube saying no love for Zach Allen. Always love for Zach Allen, but let's give some love to the whole Denver defensive line. We wondered who would step up in this group, and everyone has so far. Nick Benito has a sack in 4 straight games. Jonathan Cooper, 4.5 sacks through 6 games. And Zach Allen hasn't put up less than 12 points by Big 3 scoring all season and has 3.5 sacks too. This defensive line gets the job done, and they play New Orleans and Carolina in the next 2 games. So Zach Allen, especially if he has that D tackle designation, Bobo, must start every week.
Oh, absolutely. Let that sink in for a minute. Has not had a game where he put up less than 12 points on the season. And here we are talking about, and I know it's a different position, linebacker, but the ups and the downs of Deablos and Bobby Okerekes, and it's been the same with Brian Burns, Daniil Hunter. Are they going to get a sack or are they not? The XFL right now, Zach Allen is a D tackle. He is the D tackle 1 so far on the season. Oh, my goodness, dude.
Look at the log.
Yeah.
12, 20, 14, 14, 20, 25.
Incredible.
Amazing, because he has the tackles there, especially the last few weeks, 5, 7, and 8 tackles.
Yep.
To go along with a sack and a half in that span.
Yep. Snap share has been great. Pressures have been good. The win rate is 9.4% is fine. Pressure rate 11.8. I'm fine with Zach Allen. In redraft and dynasty, if you can get Zach Allen right now, go for it.
I wanted to see who the leaders along the defensive line. Of course, Aidan Hutchinson was number 1.
Yeah.
But then you had T.J. Watt, Max Crosby. Number 3, Bobo, Zach Allen.
Crazy.
Good to see. So, and that was a guy we said we liked. I think we joked when we talked about the Denver defensive line, we always said, is it going to be Benito? Is it going to be Cooper? Is it going to be Baron Browning? And we always just came back to, just draft Zach Allen. That's the guy that you want.
Yeah, and Cooper and Benito are going to have these little pop weeks where they get a sack, but Zach Allen just feels like the one that's solid, that's trustable from one week to the next.
Yeah, so next up here, another defensive lineman. Unfortunately, with Aidan Hutchinson out for the year, tied for the lead in sacks among active players with 7, it's Will McDonald. Bobo.
Wow.
After a quiet and underutilized rookie season, McDonald is living up to the hype from when he was taken in the middle of the first round in the NFL draft of 2023. We know Hassan Reddick now has been given permission to seek a trade from the New York Jets. Rosenhaus has said that they want to try to work out something with New York as the first option. That is not going to happen after the news that came out this weekend. He turned down a new deal from the Jets with his previous representation that would have made up all the fines, allowed him to make as much money as he was going to make this season and hit free agency in 2025. So I don't expect Hassan Reddick back with the Jets. We'll see if any team is desperate enough. I mean, maybe the Detroit Lions get on the phone now and make a trade for Hassan Reddick. They probably should, as much as this guy has been a total weirdo so far this season. But I mean, I don't know with Jermaine Johnson on the shelf, as we know, with Hassan Reddick probably out the door, I would say here sometime this week. I mean, what's not to like about Will McDonald? This team's making moves. They bring in Devontae Adams. The Jets are not giving up on their season. As bad as Aaron Rodgers has looked at times, and as good as he's looked, this is a team that I think is going to at least still be scrapping down the stretch to try to make the playoffs.
I love what Adam said last week about Will McDonald, in that he's a little bit of a one-trick pony, I feel like. The tackling grade has been abysmal so far
tackling
this year.
so far, 1, 4, 3, 0, 2, 2.
Has a 26.7 PFF tackling grade so far in the 2024 season. Yes.
Well, here's the sack starting in week 1 when he only played, 35 snaps, 0.75. 0, then 3, 2, 0, 1, 1. So, yes, he is a pass rush specialist and a sack artist, but he's also sitting right now amongst players who are still active. We're not counting Aidan Hutchinson as the D-line 4 right now by Big 3 scoring.
Yeah, he has 6 missed tackles so far on the season and a 60% missed tackle percentage. I'm assuming that's why the tackle grade is so low. But I can tell you one thing that he does do pretty well. He's a pretty good pass rusher. So far, the grade this season, 67 pass rush grade through PFF. He now has 7 sacks through 6 weeks in the NFL. Hassan Reddick not being there has elevated Will McDonald, a guy that we liked, a first-rounder. You can look at the IDPshow.com. We looked last week in the ranks. I think Will McDonald was like what was he, like a mid-first-round draft pick in the NFL? Like, he was drafted pretty highly.
I think he was the 15th pick.
Yeah, so I mean, like,
last year
he has draft capital. The RAS is a 9.66. You're exactly spot on, Josh. He was the 15th overall pick. Right now, Adam has Will McDonald as the edge, 23. And you know what? McDonald could rise a little bit throughout the rest of
this is why they took
season.
This guy.
Yep.
They took him to pair with Jermaine Johnson as their edge rushers of the future, and they brought in Reddick to make a push with Rodgers as the quarterback.
But you're getting McDonald for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
There is no Reddick coming back.
Nope.
You know, that ship has sailed. You're getting Will McDonald. The snaps are probably going to stay steady, if not increase a little bit for the rest of the season. So I'm super comfortable with Will McDonald.
It's him and Michael Clemens.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
As far as the edge rushers, they're at 70+% of snaps. Tack McKinley and Eric Watts were the only 2 edge rushers to get snaps.
Love McDonald's.
So, What was the headline here? Old McDonald had another sack. E-I-E-I-L.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Aaron is really
that's a bad one.
He's killing it with these headlines.
For sure.
So Devin Lloyd, the definition, if you will, of underwhelming, frustrating play since the Foye Oluokun injury after missing week 4 with an injury of his own. He's played 97 and 100% of snaps the past 2 weeks in what we could call the Foye role. However, his production has been anything but Foye-like. Lloyd is averaging 8.63 points and 7.5 tackles, an 11.2% tackle rate per game with no splash plays at all. Ventrell Miller, on the other hand, averaging 71% of snaps, 14 points, and 9 tackles, which is an 18% rate per game across the same period. Joey actually brought up on the preview with Jace, he said, I might actually start Ventrell Miller over Devin Lloyd. And Jace was like, I don't know if I'd go that far, because of the snaps, but do we have a conversation right now amongst these Jacksonville linebackers on who we should be starting, Bobo?
Absolutely. I brought it up in week 1 of like, hey, just want to point out, Foye played 85% of snaps. Don't know if this is a big deal or if this is worth noting. Week 2, week 3 happens. Foye is healthy, but the snap percentage continues to be a rotating cast of linebackers there. Even the depths of like Chad Muma got some run. Yasir Abdullah has gotten some play. Like it's been a rotating cast of whoever the DC likes at the time. So you're exactly right. Devin Lloyd's frustrating play maybe doesn't have so much to do with Devin Lloyd as much as it has to do with Ventrell Miller. I think Ventrell Miller could be a guy. So far on the season, pass rush grade and tackling are okay. They're right around 50. The coverage grade has been bad. But a run defense grade last week of 88.8 on the season, he's at a 74. And then an overall PFF grade of 65.4. I don't know. I've kind of always thought with Devin Lloyd that the floor could fall out from underneath him, and it kind of appears like it is. I don't think anybody listening to this show has an overly large amount of assets invested into Devin Lloyd. This Devin Lloyd's never been a guy that we've just banged the drum for. The bigger part here is Ventrell Miller playing good, but the bigger part to me is, so Foye, this is a conversation now. You had to know that over the last couple of years, Foye's been LB1, LB1, LB1. It's got to end at some point.
Well, it ended via injury, but even before then, it was trending towards ending with the snap share weirdness.
Yeah.
And I will say, it has been interesting to see the snaps for Devin Lloyd the last couple weeks, and I'll pull those up. It has been interesting as well, just the output, right? Let's go back to week 3. That's when Ventrell Miller kind of entered the scene for the Jaguars. 10 points, 15 points, 11 points, 15 points, outscoring Devin Lloyd each of those 4 weeks.
Wow. So
you don't want to chase production, especially on the snap share that he is getting, which is around 70%. Mm-hmm. It was 69.7%. But what is important here, I'm looking at John's article, he did overtake Chad Muma as the LB2.
Yeah.
That's important. Like Macri points out here, he's more of a deep league option considering the snap share. But I think it's just important. We talk about linebacker depth charts. We've already had Foye go out. Devin Lloyd was next up. You needed to know who are those guys behind Devin Lloyd that are going to slot in to that spot that's being vacated by Lloyd moving up into the Foye role. And Ventrell Miller has risen to the top. So I don't know that I'm necessarily starting him over Devin Lloyd, but I'm paying attention to this because he's just one of those guys that could come into play later in the season if we get a Devin Lloyd injury. Or maybe he just outplays Devin Lloyd and takes his job.
Bingo. I think that's the bigger thing. Foye is going to come back, and Foye is going to be what Foye is, assuming health, assuming the foot's okay, assuming he's off IR, assuming all that looks okay. I'm with you, Joshy. I think this is a massive red flag for Devin Lloyd. Are we now looking at like Devin Lloyd's next landing spot? What's that going to be like? I think he has maybe 1 year left on that Jacksonville rookie contract. But yeah, I'm with you to where it's like Devin Lloyd, now you're on red alert right now because Ventrell Miller is cheaper, is younger, and is playing better than you.
Yeah, I wanted to look at the grades. Okay, so they're not here in the article. Do you have the grades pulled up?
Yeah, I'll get to them.
He out-tackled Devin Lloyd in week 6. The tackle efficiency, 19.6 compared to 12.1. But yeah, Devin Lloyd was in for 100% of snaps. So that's interesting to me in that they did not trust Foye and Devin Lloyd prior to Foye's injury to play 100% of snaps, which was very odd.
Yeah.
But now we have Devin Lloyd playing 100% of snaps.
Ventrell's last 3 weeks, 84% of snaps, 59, and then 70. He has 27 tackles and a forced fumble over the last 3 weeks. So the PFF numbers aren't terrible. The play is pretty good. And I don't know, man. I'm worried if I'm the Devin Lloyd manager at this point.
Yeah. Do you have the PFF grades for old pull that up here. We'll
you want him for Devin Lloyd?
Yeah, give me Devin Lloyd and Ventrell Miller. Let's just kind of compare apples to apples here for
sure.
those two guys.
So Devin Lloyd, real quick, let's look at him on the 2024 season. They're not bad. He has a 63 grade in coverage, 58 in pass rush, an 88 grade in tackling, 80 run defense, and then a 70 overall defensive grade. So not that bad. Not that bad at all.
Yeah, I was looking up Ventrell Miller as well. Overall, 53.9. Run defense, 74. Pass rush, 52. Coverage, 40.6. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Devin Lloyd is playing better, at least according to the PFF grades. But as far as production goes, Miller has been more productive.
Bingo. Devin Lloyd was out in week 4, but over the last 2 weeks, he has 6 tackles against your Colts in week 5, and then he did have 9 last week against Chicago. So, boy, figuring this out for the rest of the season is going to be fun.
I think it's Devin Lloyd just until we start to see a shift in the snaps. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I wanted to see here what were his grades against Chicago. 65.4 overall. Run defense, 88.8. Mm-hmm. Tackling grade, 42.1. So he's gone up and down with the tackling grades. 51 in week 4, 80.8 in week 5, down to 42.1 this past week. So
could you trade Devin Lloyd for Bobby Okereke?
I think you'd still have to give a plus on the Devin Lloyd side.
You're probably right.
I think the perception has not shifted that much with Okereke.
But that's something I'm considering. I'm considering moving a guy like Ventrell and Devin Lloyd, especially for this next season or two, while it could be weird there in Jacksonville with the playing time. 100% of snaps for Bobby O. That's one thing I keep going back to. That's really hard to find right now.
Well, and you also have to be aware as a potential acquirer of Devin Lloyd that Foye is coming back.
For sure.
And that is a monkey wrench that I really cannot anticipate for several reasons because now we've seen them willing to give a linebacker 100% of snaps, but also this coaching staff may get fired. Like if the Jags bomb out again next week in London, especially against Drake May in his second start.
You think that could be it for Peterson?
That's it for Peterson. I'm telling you right now, if this team flatlines in London against Drake May and this bad, I mean, you got Gerard Mayo coming out this week and saying this team, this roster is full of holes. This rebuild is going to take several years, and that's just where we're at, right? And so if you lose to that team in London after getting your doors blown off the last week while in London, I think Peterson is on a different flight back to Jacksonville.
And aside from Foye, you have a really healthy team. All your offense is healthy. Majority of your defense is healthy. You've got Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker playing. Josh Allen didn't doing much, but Trayvon Walker's had a couple pops over here the last couple weeks. I've been wondering your take on the Peterson saga.
You've paid the franchise quarterback.
Just leave him in London.
You brought over, just let him have a little vacation there. You brought over Gabe Davis, right, who's, I understand. Look, I get watching that game how much that supporting cast let down Trevor Lawrence, but there is just a malaise with this team that you see right before coaches get fired.
Yeah.
Right? I was surprised a little bit by Saleh. I thought if things started to go south that he could be on the chopping block since this is like a win the Super Bowl or this season is a failure type of setup for the Jets this year with Aaron Rodgers getting older. But did not see him as the first coach fired. Thought that was a little premature. I am surprised that Doug Peterson was not let go after this last week.
Any other coaches on the hot seat right now?
Sirianni, I think, is on the hot seat. I think he could be gone. I think Mike McCarthy's seat is getting pretty hot under that big old butt.
Okay.
So he was 2 hours late to his press availability this past week. Like,
that's bizarre.
Especially after the stories come out that he would miss meetings with the Packers because he was getting massages in his office. Like, this dude's just kind of a schlub, like just kind of like sloppy and lacking professionalism a little bit, it seems like. So I don't know how much longer Jerry Jones is going to tolerate this. I mean, they got absolutely demolished by Detroit.
Yeah.
I think if you see another couple of bad weeks like that, Dallas could be looking for a new head coach.
Daboll solid?
I wouldn't say it's probably about 50-50 right now. Depends on how the rest of the season goes for the Giants.
I gotcha.
Right? So those would be, and then Pierce is kind of on my radar a little bit as far as like this Raiders team is pretty clearly packing it in now.
Oh, yeah.
So if they truly go all in on the rebuild, trade Max Crosby, for example, then I think Pierce is safe because ownership is acknowledging this team sucks.
Yeah.
We need a new quarterback.
They do.
And now the question is, if you get like Sanders in the upcoming draft, right? Shador Sanders, is Antonio Pierce the right guy to mold this young quarterback, this number 1 overall pick, or do you go get an offensive mind?
I don't think Shador's that good.
Well, I just think he fits with like what the Raiders classically have gone for. You know, the team that drafted Jamarcus Russell first overall. You know, that Davis bloodline is strong when it comes to just like big, strong, fast athletes, right?
For sure.
So we'll see. I think Pierce, though, is on my radar a little bit.
I gotcha.
So let's wrap up, though, Bobo. A couple points here to finish up. Can Ernest still save Christmas? Bobo, that is the question. 2 weeks in a row, he's scored less than double-digit points. He's playing 100% of the snaps, and his 14.2% tackle rate is within a solid range. However, he hasn't made an impact play in any of his 5 games outside of 3 tackles for loss and 1 defended pass, which has lowered his ceiling. Any concern for Ernest Jones right now?
Y'all spoiled. Y'all spoiled if we worried about Ernest saving Christmas. Send him back to L.A.
Please do. That would be great. They need some help.
He could save my Christmas single-handedly. I don't even care what the Rams do. I'd just be happy to see him in a Rams jersey again.
I think he's going to be fine. He's getting 100% of snaps.
Dude,
14.2% tackle rate.
Here's one thing I
He'll
love.
be fine.
Here's one thing I love about Ernest and a lot of players in general. Pay attention to this. Ernest is past his bye week. So as you're pushing now for the playoffs, you've got a player that is going to play for the rest of the season.
It's a great
You
point.
don't have to worry about his bye week. But taking the bye week aside, the week 1 performance was a little lackluster. 3 tackles on 46% of snaps.
He also had just gotten traded.
Has essentially played 100% of snaps since then. 15, 14, 8 points, 9 points. He essentially has, 27 tackles over his last 3 games. Dear God, go trade for Ernest Jones.
9 tackles per game?
I'm trying to trade for Ernest Jones in the XFL right now. It's not going well.
Yeah, it's not going well.
I just want him back. I miss him.
You need a boomerang.
I need something to smile about in the XFL. It's been a rough year.
You need some happiness. Yeah, I'm not worried about Ernest. He falls into that bucket with Bobby O. 100% of snaps. His role is solidified.
That team
He's healthy.
sucks. They're playing a lot.
Yeah, so I'm not worried. Brighter days are ahead for Ernest Jones. Don't get panicked and drop him to pick up a Ventrell Miller or something like that. Don't do something stupid. By and large, just don't drop linebackers playing 100% of snaps.
Stupid.
Just drop from somewhere else on your roster. Don't let those guys hit your waivers.
If you want off of them that bad, they're eligible to trade. Somebody
will trade for 100% of snaps linebacker. It's a long season, guys. We're like a third of the way through it. We still have the majority of the season in front of us.
Yep.
So
war of attrition.
A lot of these stories have yet to be written. We still need to stay patient. So last point here, Bobo. The white team, there was that fun kind of like Twitter thing going around of like the all-white team versus the all-black team in the offseason. The all-white team was going to get absolutely cooked because you had I think Reed Blankenship playing cornerback going against guys like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. Now, Bobo, we have 2 legit white corners in the NFL. The prince that was promised, Cooper DeJean, got the start at nickel corner for the Eagles, played 91% of the snaps, got half a sack, 51 punt return yards, had a QB hit, 6 tackles. This is kind of what we had hoped for. It was a little slow going to get DeJean on the field, but now Honey Mustard is here. I'm feeling pretty good.
Hey, this is what we thought was going to happen.
The punt return yards,
gosh,
playmaking, half a sack, a QB hit, and 6 tackles.
Hey, get ready.
The Eagles won.
Yeah,
right.
That's a bigger point too. Get ready. If you haven't had a good season so far as defensive backs or safeties, what is DeJean in RSO? Is he a cornerback in there?
He's a cornerback. Yeah, I've got him.
Which most of I
took him in the 4th round.
A lot of the DBs that come out in RSO in the rookie season come out as I think Brian Branch was a cornerback. Minka was a cornerback. I'm trying to think of the ones this year. Cam Kinchins is a cornerback. Anyways, beside the point, Cooper DeJean, this is your small. Go get him on waivers or trade for him window because if this play continues, he could be a league saver for you. I don't know about a league winner, but he could really turn around the defensive back position for you.
Well, and this is what we've said. We love these nickel corners. And I'm looking at the headline here from RotoWire. DeJean is set to start over Avonte Maddox as the Eagles nickel corner Sunday against the Browns.
Smart.
And now that we've seen what the debut looked like, it's funny because the last game that he was actually playing, he played one snap and had -2 points in week 4 against Tampa Bay. I don't know what that was. Maybe a dropped punt or something like that, a fumble, probably fumbled a punt. Something like that. So, I mean, this is what we had hoped for. This guy is an athletic freak. He should have probably been a first-round pick, but was a high second-round pick. Now I think he's going to have this nickel corner role, and this is what we like. We love the nickel corner because of the alignment, because of where these guys line up. They're closer to the ball, and especially if you're getting the punt return bonus in leagues that score, kick, and punt return yards, Cooper DeJean could be a top 15 DB rest of season.
Look, I mean, you're listening to the IDP show. You know we've been in on Cooper DeJean. We've been in on Ernest Jones. We've been in on Will McDonald. Old Adam's been preaching about Zach Allen, Bobby Okereke. We know Tykee Smith, Trevin Wallace. If you know, you know. I mean, you're here for a reason. This is just more proof that, the IDPshow.com. We don't do everything right, but we do a lot of things pretty well.
I'm going to get that on a T-shirt. So, yes, from John, just, a little bit of caution. But if you're in CB-required leagues, man,
all for it.
I'm throwing DeJean out there.
Agreed.
I've got him and Paulson Deablo in our main league. I'm rolling both those guys out there.
You just said Nick Sirianni was in the hot seat. You know what you just said that they did? They won last week.
That's right.
Which would maybe be an indication, hey, maybe Cooper DeJean's working. Maybe keep him out there.
It's so important when they make changes like this to their lineup and they win versus when they lose. As long as that player didn't embarrass themselves in a win, it probably is pointing to them just doing the same thing next week.
Also another player who is through his bye. The Philadelphia Eagles have already had their bye.
That's right.
I want to point out real quick, too, just because we don't have Ernest anymore, pay attention to Omar Speights. Let's just see what that snap count looks like this week. Could be a week. Rams fresh off their bye. Troy Reeder and old Roseboom have been poo-poo so far this year. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see maybe Blake Corum and Omar Speights get a little PT.
That'd be fun.
Let's put a pin in it.
That'd be fun. All right, well, there you go, folks. Week 6 headlines. We hope you enjoyed this episode. 3 of us should be back in the shack next week. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We've got Jake Colhagen on the IDP preview episode in the after show feed with Jace
Jakey
coming out tomorrow, so that should be fun. We've got Mike's work, of course, over on the website. Waivers are going up here in about 30 minutes as we're recording this. We'll have Johnny the Greek's Cornerback Corner. Rankings drop tomorrow from Mike. We've got Scott's DL streaming article. We've got the IDP update with Jeff Pomazal. We've got the Sunday morning live stream with Jeff, answering all of your questions for your lineups for Week 7. So come check it out, theidpshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at The IDP Show, and we're on YouTube, youtube.com/@theidpshow. So until next week, y'all take care, and we'll see you soon.
It's the IDP show. Now you